Yo, yo, yo. How are we sounding? How are we sound? There we go. Sounding pretty good. Skip. All right, y'all. We're finna get ready to get started. Hope everyone's having a fantastic night so far. All righty. So many things to click through now since I'm changing the way that I actually do my information. All right, I think I'm gonna have to. I should be able to go on now. All righty. We are here. Shalom to everyone. I hope y'all having a fantastic night. From a request, well, I don't know if we can call it a request or not, but regardless, it was brought to my attention about my inquiries about Daniel 70 weeks. So I decided just to do a freestyle update. Well, I got some notes on it, but you know what I'm saying? I'm doing an update about Daniel 70 weeks. So for the people who like end time prophecies, the people who like eschatology, this is going to be something that you can go back and listen to, look at, and compare your notes to what's been brought out. All praises to the Most High indeed. This is going to be Daniel 70 weeks, and we are on three platforms. We're going to be on Clubhouse, TikTok, as well as YouTube. So eventually, I'm gonna get something else I can go back to Facebook as well, but and Instagram and all that stuff. But until then, this is where we at. So let's get ready to rock and roll. Start this information. Since we all have work tomorrow, I'm gonna try to make sure that this doesn't last too long. Long enough, but not too long. All right. So we had Daniel 70 weeks. What is this about? Get your pen, paper, popcorn, coffee, and etc. because this is going to be entertaining. Once again, if you enjoy eschatology, study of end times, last times, and etc., this lesson will be for you. All praises. All right, let's get ready to begin. Our main verse is going to be Daniel 9:24. I guess I can give a little disclaimer before we jump right into the information. Y'all make sure y'all hit the like, give me some hearts, share, and etc. so we can get as many people that need to hear this inside of the room. Y'all can also follow me on all platforms. So, what's leading up to Daniel's 70 weeks? What has led up to it? Well, first of all, Jeremiah has received a prophecy. Jeremiah's prophecy is about the 70 years that Israel, mainly the southern kingdom, would be under the Babylonians and outside of their land because of their violation of the covenant. So, Jeremiah has received a prophecy that Israel would in fact be sacked and sieged by the Babylonians, and this was going to last said 70 years. Their temple was going to be destroyed, their custom, their culture was going to be destroyed, their way of life was going to leave, and etc. So, and they was going to, according to the Lamentations, the law would end for them. So, Daniel is around the end of the 70 years. And now he's wondering, okay, Lord, you are faithful in all your works and everything that you said. So we're at the end of the 70 years, and it doesn't really look like things are consummating. So I'm just gonna make a supplication to you, Lord, to remind you that we're down here and we're waiting on your word to be fulfilled. So Daniel is in a position of trying to find out, trying to appease, trying to supplicate to the Lord so he could find out when exactly would they leave Babylonian captivity and go back to Jerusalem. Okay, so that's the background marker that they're at, and the angel Gabriel comes to Daniel and gives him a message. If you guys don't mind, please don't forget to share the live, hit the hearts, and invite more people in. Y'all just popping in, popping out. Y'all know how these things flow. Show some love, keep it real. All right, so here we go. Daniel's 70 weeks. Daniel 9:24. 70 weeks are decreed upon thy city and upon thy people to finish the transgression, to make an end of sin, to forgive iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal vision and prophet, and to anoint the most holy place. Okay, certain words has to be broke down in order for us to understand exactly what's being stated here. So 70 weeks, the word weeks, H7620 in the Strongs, Hashavayim, however you say it, it looks like Hashavayim. It stands for a period of 7 days or a period of 7 years. It's a heptad, a week. So, according to the word study of this word from biblical occurrences and contextual analysis, the singular appearance of H2. Oh no, we're not. Sorry, we're not on that one just yet. Sorry about that. So 70 periods of 7. So everyone who knows math, 70 times 7 equals 490. That's going to be important for later on. Okay, so 70 weeks, 490 are decreed, and the word decreed right there, H2852. What's so special about this word right here? From the word study, it only occurs once in the Hebrew Bible. It only occurs once in the Hebrew Bible. And it says this right here. This is from the word study. The singular, this is from biblical occurrences and contextual analysis. It says the singular appearance of H2852 occurs in the significant prophecy of Daniel 9:24. That's the only time this particular word has been used in the Hebrew Bible. The verse states 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city. This divine decree sets a specific time frame for the accomplishment of 6 key objectives: to finish transgression, make an end of sins, make reconciliation for iniquity, bring in everlasting righteousness, seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. The use of chatak, that's the word, the use of chatak here establishes that this period is cut out of time by God for specific redemptive purposes. So, usually people take this word or what's going on in Daniel 70 weeks and they make it chronological history, because when they're looking at Jeremiah 70 weeks, they're looking at it from the chronological aspect. And then they go to Ezekiel looking at it from the chronological aspect. So they're saying, hey, all of these things are supposed to be chronologically calculated. So you should be able to go through history and calculate this in order. Now, people who have actually done that, they all have ran into a problem. The math never math. It don't never add up. It either gets you past the Messiah, it gets you before the Messiah, it never gets you directly where they think the Messiah is at. It don't get you to the Messiah's birth. It don't really get you to the Messiah's death. I guess it depends on your calculation. But sometimes it only gets you to around when the Messiah starts his ministry. Others has realized that this is a problem, so they have what they call the gap theory, which is they put 2,000 years between week 69 and week 70. And the reason is because the math is never going to add up. The word decree right there, it's not making it say that it's going to be chronological order. It's saying that the Lord has a time. Time is flowing. And the Lord has cut out a specific time period within the flowing of time. So he can cut out if he wants to. Theoretically, if he wanted to, he can cut out a week here. He can cut out a week there. He can cut out a week there, which is pretty much the gap theory, if we think about it. But he can cut out different time periods because this is meant to be a period cut out. So the time periods that he cut out, he can put them together and they end up being 70 weeks. So just to give another analogy, if you see this right here, you guys see this right here. Y'all see this, how many, I got a lot of blanks and I got a lot of green, right? The blanks could be time periods cut out. And this could be whole. Now, when I start putting green back in here, I could put a green here, I could put a green here, I could put a green there. I don't have to put them in order. I could put them at different parts, but when I get done filling them, pulling them all up, it's full. It makes one time period. So that's pretty much the thought. The Lord has cut out a time in which he's going to accomplish his final goal. So for the people that's looking at it for chronological order, that's not how the ancient Jews viewed it. That's not how we're supposed to be viewing it. There's only people who look at things by the natural order, making it hyper literal. Therefore, they're trying to make it match. Once you go into the Dead Sea Scrolls, even if you go into um, Fourth Ezra or Second Ezra and the Apocrypha, you see that they do not use exact numerology to understand, or exact calculations in numerology to understand when this was supposed to be fulfilled. They use estimates and etc. So hopefully that helped with trying to find out about the calculation. If you're going through the math, it's not going to add up because the Lord is not using a linear chronological order right here. He's using what he has set apart. All right, so hopefully that makes sense so we can actually go into the true things of being stated in Daniel 70 weeks. We got to go through that first before we actually get into the bread and the butter, because if we don't, you're going to be lost in the sauce. All right, so here we go. Daniel 77s. Now, why 77s? This, you have to know this information to understand what Daniel is speaking upon. If you don't know what the 77 stand for, you're going to miss what the Lord is accomplishing through delivering this prophecy to Daniel. So let's go through what's actually being stated here. So this is the AI overview, right? It says in the King James Bible, every 7 years refers to the sabbatical year, the Shemitah, commanded in Deuteronomy 15, 1 through 10. And shalom to the brothers who came on stage. Shalom to Brother Demetrius, Brother Leroy. Shalom to you. So, and we'll open up later if you guys want to speak. And thank y'all for joining in, and as well as everyone on TikTok and in the Facebook world. Thank you all. So, the sabbatical year was a commandment, right? Every 7 years, Israel was supposed to do something. Now, so when you talk about 77s, it's talking about sabbatical years. So now let's find out what's going on in these sabbatical years. It was commanded in Deuteronomy 15, 1 through 10, where debts were released and Hebrew servants were freed, encouraging generosity and care for the poor, as well as a time for the law to be read publicly. It is also mentioned in Deuteronomy 31 and 10 for the public reading of the law. So y'all know me, if y'all have been around this group, y'all know we talk a lot about the Jubilee year and what occurs during Jubilee. Well, come to find out, whatever they were doing during the Jubilee year, they was actually supposed to do it every 7 year. So every 7 year, they were supposed to do it. And then during the year of release, during the year of Jubilee, they were supposed to do it. So if you're doing this every 7 year, and the Lord is making a big deal of it during Jubilee, don't you think that this maybe is what the Lord is showing that he cares the most about? This is well, we're gonna talk about what's going on with that later on. But no, the 50th year would be pretty much the first year when it go back. So it'll be 49, and then the first year, which will be the 50th year. It'll be the first year that they have release, which it will be the 50th year, but it's actually the first year. In other words, it goes, it's a cycle. But this is what's going on. Deuteronomy 15, 1 and 2. At the end of every 7 years, thou shalt make a release. And this is the manner of the release. Every creditor that lendeth out to his neighbor shall release it. He shall not exact it of his neighbor or of his brother, because it is called the Lord's release. This is Deuteronomy 15, 12 through 15. The freedom of the Hebrew slaves. Hebrew servants sold into servitude were to be set free in the 7th year, and generously provision with livestock, grain, and wine. What else happened? Deuteronomy 31, 10 through 12. The public reading of the law. Every 7 years during the Feast of Tabernacles. Now we are starting to realize what's happening, right? Because when is the Feast of Tabernacles? That's when you are supposed to tabernacle with God, and God is supposed to tabernacle with you. But during this Feast of Tabernacles, the law was to be read before all Israel, men, women, children, and the strangers, to teach them to fear God and obey his commands. So understand, during the 7-year, the sabbatical year, during the Feast of Tabernacles, it was taught to the congregation to know the Lord and obey his commands. What is that opposite of? The new covenant says they will no longer teach the neighbor to know the Lord, for they will all know me. So the new covenant is the reflection or the opposite of what they were supposed to do in the old covenant. So the new covenant during the Feast of Tabernacles, they don't have to teach no more because they all know the Lord. In the old covenant, they are required to teach, to learn, to fear the Lord and obey his commands. All right. So here's the context of blessing. These commands emphasize God's blessing, the importance of not being poor, and the promise that Israel would prosper if they obeyed. So now think about this. 70 sevens. So this will be generation upon generation upon generation, right? Every 7 years. Every 7 years, they were supposed to make a debt to release of the debt of the Hebrew slaves, and they're supposed to read the law. The poor is supposed to be blessed. The rich is supposed to help the poor. They all are supposed to be on one accord. They all are supposed to learn of the Lord. This is happening every 7 years. So 70, this is supposed to happen 70 times before the prophecy in Daniel is complete. So this right here was supposed to happen 70 times. Do you think the Lord is trying to explain and tell them something? Now, this is Leviticus 25. I'm going to read 1 through 5. It says, and the Lord spoke unto Moses in Mount Sinai. And I have to look that up about the house means generation. I have to look that up later. But it says, and the Lord spoke unto Moses in Mount Sinai, saying, speak to the children of Israel and say unto them, when you come into the land which I give you, then shall the land keep a Sabbath unto the Lord. 6 years thou shalt sow thy field, and 6 years thou shalt prune thy vineyard, and gather in the produce thereof. But in the 7th year shall be a Sabbath of solemn rest for the land, a Sabbath unto the Lord. Thou shalt neither sow thy field nor prune thy vineyard. So now we have another ordinance, which is not only do the people go through a quote unquote rest sabbatical year, the land that they are inside goes through a rest, aka a sabbatical year. All praises to the Most High for making sure that everything that he had a part of definitely had a rest. But let's continue on because there's more information to bring out about this. So, and I got the wrong person invited. Exodus 23, 10, and 11. And Sharp said, can anybody ping him? I think I tried to ping him. So if you guys can y'all ping Sharp? But this is what it says. In 6 years thou shalt sow the land and gather the increase thereof. But the 7th year thou shalt let it rest and lie fallow, that the poor of thy people may eat, and what they leave, the beasts of the field shall eat. In like manner, thou shalt deal with thy vineyard and with thy olive yard. So here you see the Lord is making provisions for the poor, but once again, this is something that has to happen every 7 years. And I'm going to try to bring Sharp in as well. All right, so let's do a recap. So every 7 years, they're supposed to release debts, release slaves, quit working the land, and feed the hungry, and let the beasts of the land eat whatever that's left. They're supposed to do this every 7 years. Now, this is when, and shalom to everybody as well, this is when the sabbatical curses is important to understand. Because Daniel is reading Jeremiah. He stated that, wanting to know when the 70 years are finished and they can go back into the land. But we have to find out one of the reasons they had to leave out of the land and go into Babylon, because this is vital to understand Daniel 70 weeks prophecy. It's vital to understand it. So once you go to Second Chronicles 36, 19 through 21, listen to why one of the real reasons, one of the main reasons Israel had to leave the land of Canaan, aka Jerusalem, and go into Babylon. It says this: and they burnt the house of God and broke down the wall of Jerusalem and burnt all the palaces thereof with fire and destroyed all the goodly vessels thereof. And them that had escaped from the sword carried he away to Babylon. And they were servants to him and his sons into the reign of the kingdom of Persia, to fulfill the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah, until the land had paid her Sabbaths. For as long as she lay desolate, she kept Sabbath to fulfill 70 years. And thank you for the likes. If y'all can join her, show some likes. I appreciate that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, y'all clearly see something happened dealing with the land. And the land had to be paid for the Sabbaths that were not kept. So she had to lay desolate until the full payment was paid. Now, how long were they in Babylon? 70 years. 70 years. So, when was the Sabbath supposed to be paid? Every 7th year. So for every 7th year, the Sabbath of the land wasn't kept correctly, they had to pay 1 year. So in other words, every 7 years, if you didn't do right, you owe me for that 7th year. So they owed 70 years worth. So when you do the math, 70 years equals how many payments did they are, let's say it like this. What is the total amount of years they violated in order to be paid out 70 times, aka 70 years? Because every year represented one time they was paid out. If you go to 70 times every 7 year is a sabbatical year, you have 490 years. You get what's going on now? So Israel was in violation of not paying their sabbatical tributes to the land for 490 years. How long was Daniel's 77 weeks prophecy? 490 years. So what happened with Babylon was a 490 year occurrence. What's happening in Daniel is a 490 year occurrence. So they both are speaking on things pertaining to 490 years. So we got it. This has got to be emphasized. With them falling to Babylon was something dealing with them violating for 490 years. Now we're being spoken of something that's going to befall Israel again with Daniel dealing with 490 years. So now let's look at why why Second Chronicles said that the land had to be laid desolate until she kept her Sabbaths and was paid. Leviticus 26:14-15 says this: but if you will not hearken unto me, and will not do all these commandments, and if you shall reject my statutes, and if your soul abhor mine ordinances, so that you will not do all my commandments, but break my covenant. Here's verse 31 through 35. And I will make your cities a waste, and will bring your sanctuaries into desolation. And I will not smell the savor of your sweet odors. So you see, the Lord is taking away the daily sacrifice right there. But anyway, and I will bring the land into desolation, and your enemies that dwell therein shall be astonished at it. And you will I scatter among the nations, and I will draw out the sword after you, and your land shall be a desolation, and your city shall be a waste. Then shall the land be paid her Sabbaths, as long as it lieth desolate, that and ye are in your enemy's land, even then shall the land rest and repay her Sabbaths. Before I keep reading, this is 2 Chronicles 36:21. To fulfill the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah, until the land had been paid her Sabbaths. For as she lay desolate, she kept Sabbath to fulfill 70 years. So you clearly see the curse that's given in Leviticus is what befell Israel during the Babylonian captivity. Oh, yeah, I see. Hey, shalom, shalom. Hey, come back whenever you are. I should be here. As long, and this is Leviticus 26:35 to continue on. As long as it lieth desolate, it shall have rest, even the rest which it had not in your Sabbaths when you dwell upon it. So here's verse 42 and 43 of Leviticus 26. Then I will remember my covenant with Jacob, and also my covenant with Isaac, and also my covenant with Abraham will I remember. And I will remember the land, for the land shall lie forsaken without them, and shall be paid her Sabbath, while she lieth desolate without them, and they shall be paid the punishment of their iniquity, even because they rejected mine ordinances, and their soul abhorreth my statutes. So you clearly see this is a violation of the land agreement. This is coming through a violation of the land agreement. Now, what's so important about the land? Well, first of all, it was the Lord's land. And let's see how the Lord dealt with people inside his land. Here's first one, Genesis 15:16. And in the fourth generation, they shall come back hither, for the iniquity of the Amorite is not yet full. So the Lord was making a way for the children of Israel to come into the land of Canaan, but he said, hey, they have not fully violated enough to get kicked out of the land. Give it 4 more generations, or which he called 400 years. Give it 400 years and then come back. We're going to see then that the Amorites have done everything they needed to do to get kicked out of my land. So here's the first thing right here, everyone. The Amorites were in the land of Canaan first. The children of Israel wasn't in God's land first. The other nations was in God's land first, and he kicked them out for their iniquity. Now, here's 2 Kings 17, 25, 26, and 28. This is when more Gentiles get moved into God's land, which is the land of Canaan. Let's see if God was like, ooh, the Gentiles are in my land. I don't like that. I'm going to kill them. Or let's see if he had another reaction to them being in his land. 2 Kings 17:25. And so it was at the beginning of their dwelling that they feared not the Lord. Therefore, the Lord sent lions among them, which killed some of them. So they were in his land, not fearing him. So the Lord started sending lions in to kill some of them. Why wasn't the lion sent in when the Amorites were there to kill them? Why wasn't the lion sent in when the Pesherites or all these other ites were there to kill them? He only sent the lions in when the people there in the land did not fear him. So that means that the Amorites, the Pesherites, all those other ites had an understanding of the God of that land, and they did something to fear him to a point that he did not send any animals in to kill them. See? So at one point or another, they had to know Yahweh, because Yahweh is literally one of the deities in Canaan. Yahweh came from the land of Canaan. So, I mean, we're going to be honest. But let's keep going on. 2 Kings 17 and 26. Wherefore they spoke to the king of Assyria, saying, the nations which thou hast carried away and placed in the cities of Samaria know not the manner of the God of the land. The God of the land. The God of the land. Ain't not the God of Israel, all that, even though he was the God of Israel, he was the God of Abraham, he was the God of Isaac, he was the God of Jacob, but guess what else he was the God of? The land of Canaan. That's why he always did things to the people. He always did things to the land. He always did things for the people. He always did things for the land. It's his people and his land. Let's keep going on. He has sent lions among them, and behold, they slay them, because they know not the manner of the God of the land, which means the other Gentiles that was there had to know some of the manner of the God of the land, because he didn't treat them like that. He just said their iniquity has taken over, therefore get them out of the land. Here's verse 28. So one of the priests who had been carried away from Samaria came and dwelt in Bethel and taught them how they should fear the Lord who was in the land. Now let's show you more stuff. Deuteronomy 4 and 5. Behold, I have taught you statutes and ordinances, even as the Lord my God commanded me, that ye should do, that ye should do so in the midst of the land whither ye go in to possess it. So where were they supposed to do all of these rules that God gave them? In his land. Here's Deuteronomy 32:43. Rejoice, you nations, with his people, for he will avenge the blood of his servants. He will take vengeance on his adversaries and will make atonement for his land and for his people. So you see how much the Lord, how hard the Lord went for his land, how much he demanded righteous actions in his land. So when people was taken out of the land, it was because of the violation of the things they did while in the land. So you already saw how one of the main reasons Jerusalem fell to the Babylonians was because of them violating the sabbatical ordinances for the land. They did 490 years worth. Now, Daniel comes behind Jeremiah, waiting to be freed from what's going on with that curse that befell them for violating the sabbatical years. He's asking, hey, when we're going to be cleared for this? And the Lord gives him another prophecy about the violation of the sabbatical years in the land. I'm going to show you that later. So here's Daniel 9:24 again. It says this, and may I add, we can't make it be more than what Daniel is making it be. So we done already looked at these words. 77s have been cut out upon thy people and upon thy holy city. So within that cut out time of 77s, sin would be ended. Transgressions would be sealed up. Iniquities would be blotted out. Atonement for iniquities would occur. Everlasting righteousness would be brought in. Vision and prophecies would be sealed, and the most holy place would be anointed within that time period cut out by the Lord, called 77s. Okay? Within that time period cut out by the Lord, all of these things was going to be accomplished. And that's why we have these following verses within the New Testament to show that the timeline that they were in the first century is the same timeline of the 77s that was cut out by the Lord. So let's just show that. Let's just show that. We don't got to just say it. We can show it. 1 John 2:2. And he is the atoning sacrifice. Hold on, let me try to get Saint up here. If Saint come up to the thing, give him a mod badge too if he come up. And he is the atoning sacrifice for our sins, and not our sins only. Hold on, brother. There we go. Okay. Not our sins only, but also the whole world. So now he has atoned, right, for sins. Now let's keep reading. 1 John 3:9. No one born of God makes a practice of sinning, for God's seed abides in him, and he cannot keep on sinning because he is born of God. So within that 77s, sin had to be ended. What do we have? Sin being ended within the first century. Hebrews 9:15. Therefore, he is the mediator of a new covenant. Y'all got to remember that word, new covenant. It's going to come back later. So that those who are called may receive the promised eternal inheritance. Since a death has occurred that redeems them from the transgressions committed under the first covenant. What did Daniel say? The 77 cut out. What's going to happen? Transgressions would be sealed up. Acts 13:38. Let it be known to you, therefore, brothers, that through this man forgiveness of sins is proclaimed to you. What is he doing? He's blotting out all of those iniquities. He's taking all those iniquities and he's blotting them out. First Colossians 1 and 30. Hold on, might be First Corinthians 1 and 30. Sorry. And because of him, you are in Christ Jesus, who became to us wisdom from God, righteousness and sanctification and redemption. What's going to happen? It says this, to bring in everlasting righteousness. Luke 21:22. For these are the days of vengeance to fulfill all that is written. What does Daniel 9 say that's going to happen within that 77th time period cut out? To seal the vision and prophet. 1 Corinthians 3:16. Do you not know that you are God's temple and that God's spirit dwells in you? What did Daniel say? 9 say? Within that time period, he's going to anoint the most holy place. What is the most holy place? The temple of God. What did he anoint it with? The Holy Spirit. So we find out all of these things were supposed to happen within the time period that Daniel called 77s that was cut out. Now, I don't know if y'all heard it before y'all came in, but I got to make this a quick declaration. Every 7 years, the slaves were supposed to be let loose. All debts were supposed to be forgiven. The land was supposed to be put at rest. And all of the poor was supposed to partake of the food and the livestock and the nourishment from the rich and etc. And then the animals were supposed to eat everything that was left over. So this was supposed to happen every 7 years. So 70 times worth of these actions were supposed to occur. So Israel should have had this instilled inside of their hearts that the Most High really cared about these actions. So 70 times worth of these actions was supposed to happen throughout the land of Canaan. All right, so now we're going to break down some of this Daniel's 70 weeks prophecy. And thank y'all for letting me flow. I'm almost done. So let's break it down. Daniel 9:25. It says, know therefore and discern that from the going forth of the word to restore and to build Jerusalem unto one anointed, a prince, shall be 7 weeks. Christians, Hebrew Israelites, and everybody else, we have to be honest with this passage. First of all, Jerusalem, the temple, the sanctuary, all of these things was destroyed when this prophecy was given to Daniel. So they're looking at something that's already, quote unquote, destroyed by the Babylonians. So it's stated that it's going to be a time period of 7 sevens. And we know what 7 sevens is supposed to allude to, which is a jubilee, a release. You can also put this dealing with the Feast of Weeks and etc. But that's supposed to be during a group of 7 sevens. So this is Isaiah 45:1. Thus said the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have holden, to subdue nations before him, and to loose the loins of kings, to open the doors before him, that the gates may not be shut. We cannot take that first 7 groups of 7 from Cyrus. We can't take it from Cyrus. Cyrus was the anointed. that was going to, what he was designated to bring Israel back from captivity. So we cannot take that from Cyrus. Okay? Daniel didn't take it from Cyrus. But this is what Daniel said after the first group of 7 sevens. He said this, and after the 62 weeks. So he didn't say something about the 7 sevens. Now he's saying something about the 62 sevens. You got to deal with it. That's what's going on. And after the 62 weeks, the anointed one shall be destroyed, and there is no judgment in him. So we know this can't be talking about Cyrus, because this happened 62 sevens after Cyrus, who was on the 7 sevens. And don't forget, this is time cut out by the Lord. The Lord never made it be chronological order dealing with timetables. That's not what the Lord did. These are times cut out. So the time starts whenever he wants it to start. There's definitely not a 7,000, 2,000 year gap in none of this. But let's just read what happens, because we're going to miss what Daniel is explaining. And I heard a lot of people miss it. And after 62 weeks, the anointed one shall be destroyed, and there is no judgment in him. John 19:23. When the soldiers had crucified Jesus, they took his garments and divided them into 4 parts, 1 part for each soldier, also his tunic. But the tunic was seamless, woven in one piece from top to bottom. Verse 30. When Jesus had received the sour wine, he said, "It is finished." And he bowed his head and gave up the spirit. So that's Daniel 9:26. After the 62 weeks, and we're going to talk about that, what he said, in just a second. So here's the next part that flow in Daniel. And he shall destroy the city and the sanctuary with the prince that is coming. They shall be cut off with the flood. And to the end of the war, which is rapidly completed, he shall appoint the city to desolations. Luke 21:20. But when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then know that its desolation has come near. Verse 24. They will fall by the edge of the sword and be led captive into all nations, and Jerusalem will be trampled underfoot by the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles is fulfilled. One thing we cannot overlook, people, if Daniel 9:26 is talking about Luke 21:20 through 24, the time of the Gentiles cannot be thousands of years. Why do I say that? Because this is what Daniel 9:26 says. Listen to the words carefully. They shall be cut off with a flood, and to the end of the war, which is rapidly completed. Which is rapidly completed. So if the time of the Gentiles is the war that is going to be rapidly completed, it can't be 2,000 years, because 2,000 years is not rapidly in anybody's definition, in anybody's book, in anybody's understanding. See, the Bible, it defeats false doctrines by itself. It really don't need our help. We just got to repeat what it says. So the war is going to be completed rapidly. Until the time of the Gentiles are fulfilled is the war that was going to be completed rapidly. So we're done with that one now. So we don't have to go through that no more. But now, this is what gets overlooked. If I go to Leviticus 26:31 through 33, it says this. And I will lay your cities waste, and I will make your sanctuaries desolate, and I will not smell the savor of your sacrifices, and I will lay your land desolate, and your enemies who dwell in it shall wonder at it. And I will scatter you among the nations, and the sword shall come upon you and consume you. And your land shall be desolate, and your city shall be desolate. What does Daniel say? Daniel says this right here. Let me see. He should destroy the city and the sanctuary. What did Leviticus 26:31 say? I will lay your cities waste, and I will make your sanctuaries desolate. And it says this, and they should be cut off with a flood until the end of the war, which is rapidly completed. He shall appoint the cities to desolation. Verse 32, Leviticus 32. I will lay your land desolate. I will scatter you among the nations. Your land shall be desolate, and your cities shall be desolate. What does Luke 21:20 say? Then you know that the desolation has come near. They will fall by the edge of the sword and be led away captive among all nations. What does Leviticus 26 say? I will scatter you among all the nations. Why do I keep going back to Leviticus 26? Because Leviticus 26 is the curse that came upon them for violating the sabbatical years. What was Jeremiah? What was one of the reasons why they went into captivity? For violating the sabbatical years. What did he say? 490 years worth of violation of the sabbatical years brought forth this judgment. Now, what do we have being spoken of again? A judgment that's coming upon them and would be fulfilled within the 490 years because they violated the sabbatical ordinances. These 10 jubilees, because that's what 490 years is. 49 times 10 is 490. Israel violated 10 jubilees. They went into the Babylonian captivity. Israel then violated 10 more jubilees and they went into the Roman captivity. This is all the same thing. It's talking about the judgment that came upon them for violating the 10 jubilee years, the sabbatical years, the 490. Now, I want to continue on. I only got 2 more slides. Then I will open it up and see who got anything to say. Once again, I'm not taking it from a chronological calendar persuasive perspective, or however you want to say it, because everyone who does it never comes up with great calculations. I haven't seen one person come up with great calculations trying to use this to the T historically. Every time they do it, they fall short somewhere. Either it's before Christ was born, either it's when Christ was destroyed, either it's at Christ's ministries, or we're going to put 1,000 and some year gap into it, and it's in our future. No one, even the Dead Sea Scroll community, when they did it, they didn't use 490 literal years. When the Apocrypha, Second Ezra used it, they didn't use 490 literal years. That's just what the new people do. Because, once again, they want to use man's time instead of God's time. But let's keep going on. This is where people get confused. Daniel 9:27. That's when people get confused. It says this, and 1 week shall establish the covenant with many. Now, if you guys recall, this is what Daniel said in, let me see, in verse, see if I can find it real fast. verse 20, Daniel 9:26. Let me see if I can find it on one of these slides. Where you at? I don't want after it's got to be right here. Yep, right here. Daniel 9:26. It says this. And after the 62 weeks, and I looked it up in the ESV, I looked it up in the JPS, I looked it up in the KJV, I looked it up in Young's Literal Translation, I looked it up in the Sefer, I looked it up in 5 different sources, and all of them said after. Not during, but after. Now, everybody, if you have 7 weeks and if you have 62 weeks, what is that? That's 69. Can't get around it. 7 weeks and 62 weeks is 69. That's math. We can't argue with math, people. What if 7 and 62 is 69? What does after 62 mean? In fact, I'm an elementary teacher, y'all. 4th and 5th grade, I just quit teaching. I can't deal with parents and principals. But let's just use elementary thought. If I say, what number comes after 62, what are you going to tell me? Are you going to tell me 62? If I say what comes after 62, are you going to say 62? So we all know, I don't care how much theology you want to have in your brain, I don't care how much you want to wrestle with this, we all know 63 comes after 62. So we are finna say what happens on week 63 that comes after 62. So it says this. And after 62 weeks, let me read it again. And after 62 weeks, it says this. Did I lose it again? And after the 62 weeks, the anointed one shall be destroyed. So, when is the anointed one being destroyed, everybody? Week 63. Week 63 is the 70th week. Week 63 is the 70th week. So, what we're going to read is what happened during the 70th week. The same week that Christ got cut off, we are about to read what happened during this last 7 sevens that's cut out. Let me say this again. We are fin to read what happened during the last 7 sevens that's cut out. Right? So this is going to be the last, the one more group of 7 weeks, or what they call 7 years. We're going to find out what happens. Okay, so this is what happens right here. And 1 week shall establish the covenant with many. So we're going to find out what happened during that 70th week, the same group of 7 that Christ was cut off. We're going to find out what happened. So first of all, during that last 70th week, what happens? The covenant is established with many. Matthew 26, 26 through 28. Now, as they was eating, Jesus took bread,
And after blessing it, broke it and gave it to the disciples and said, "Take, eat. This is my body." And he took a cup. And when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink of it, all of you. For this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sin." Daniel 9:27. And 1 week shall establish the covenant with many. Matthew 26:28. This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sin. The forgiveness of sins. This is the same time period. Now, this is what Daniel 9:27 says. And may I add, y'all, well, I'm going to read this and then I'm going to go back to Daniel 9:26. It says this, "And in the midst of the week, my sacrifice and drink offering shall be taken away, and on the temple shall be the abomination of desolation." Everyone, we see right there, the temple is still standing, right? Right? Daniel 9:27. The temple is still standing, right? In Daniel 9:26, it says this, "He shall destroy the city and the sanctuary with the prince that is coming." That happens, according to Daniel 9:26, that happens after the 62 weeks. Let me read it. "And after 62 weeks, the anointed one shall be destroyed, and there is no judgment in him. And he shall destroy the city and the sanctuary with the prince that is coming." So in the last week, the temple is still standing. We got it? The temple is still standing in week 70. So how can this be week 69 when the city and the sanctuary is supposed to be destroyed, when in week 70 the sanctuary is still there, the temple is still there? So clearly this is all happening after 62 weeks, which is the 70th week. That's why in the last week, we still have the temple and the sanctuary still standing in order for the abomination of desolation to be placed up. You can't get rid of the temple and then say, after they got rid of the temple, they're putting something on the temple. You can't say they didn't got rid of the city and the sanctuary, but then they just left the temple so they could put the abomination of desolation. Where did that happen at anywhere? So you see how this is literally showing us this is what's happening the last week. So now, everybody, since we know this happens the last week, and verse 26 told us first Christ is taken away, and then the city is destroyed. Let's see what happens here in verse 27. It says this, "After he makes the covenant with many for 1 week, in the midst of the week, my sacrifice and drink offering shall be taken away." Luke 23:46. "Then Jesus, calling out with a loud voice, said, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." And having said this, he breathed his last breath. Who is the sacrifice and drink offering that was taken away? It's the Messiah. The Messiah is the. How much can they say that he got poked in his side and water and blood poured out? How much more reference do you need to know about a drink offering? The drink offering of wine. How much more do you need to know when it said that the water and the blood poured out from him? He is the sacrifice and the drink offering that was taken away. In verse 90, I said 96, sorry. In verse 26, it said the quote unquote anointed one was taken away, or the anointed one was destroyed. Now we have it being restated another way. The sacrifice and drink offering was taken away. But then what follows? What followed Christ being destroyed was the war that came upon Jerusalem. Let's see what follows the sacrifice and drink offering being taken away. And on the temple shall be the abomination of desolations, and at the end of time, an end shall be put to the desolation. Matthew 24, 15 and 16. So when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. What was going to be what was going to replace the Messiah? The Messiah stated it. When you see false Christ and false prophets, that's when they would know the end of the age has come upon them. And when they see the false Christ and the false prophets, what did it say? They will kill some of you. They will persecute some of you in their synagogues, and the love of many will wax cold, and the overspreading of lawlessness will increase. So when they start persecuting you in this city, fleeing to the next, you will not have gone through all the cities of Israel before the Son of Man be come. Understand, the abomination of desolations was the doctrine, what they call the mark of the beast. It was the doctrine that the false prophets, the false Christ produced, which brought forth war and destruction and anything that made the love of many wax cold. The love, remember, Christ came to do what? Fulfill the law. What fulfills the law? Love. When Christ was taken away, the people, the false prophets, the false Christ brought hatred, destruction. And the Lord said, when you see that, when you see these people riling up, when you see these people start being in the temples and in the temple and in the synagogue and amongst you, when you see these people start bringing forth this wickedness, this lawlessness, I need you guys to leave, because destruction is coming upon them. And what would these people be doing? Violating the sabbatical ordinances. Let's go there real fast and then I'll be done. I got 2 more slides and I'll be done. So what would they be doing? This is what they were supposed to do. Deuteronomy 15, 1 and 2. Every 7 years, they were supposed to make a release. They were supposed to, all the creditors that was owed something was supposed to release the debts. They were supposed to free the slaves. They were supposed to do a public reading of the law during the Feast of Tabernacles. They were supposed to, what else were they supposed to do? Let's see here. I got it here. They were supposed to let the land relax. They were supposed to feed the poor and leave everything else for the beast of the field. All of this is love for one another. According to Christ, the love of many would wax cold. they start violating the 7-year sabbatical years, just like Israel did in the first place. And the Lord had the Babylonians come in and smack some sense into them. So they're doing it again, and now he's going to have Rome come in and not only smack sense into them, he's going to start the whole thing fresh. So this is the last slide, and I'll be done. Daniel 9:24. 70 weeks have been determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city, for sin to be ended, and to seal up transgressions, to blot out the iniquities, and to make atonement for iniquities, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal the vision and the prophet, and to anoint the most holy. That's a lot of words. How did Jeremiah put it? Jeremiah 31:34. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, know the Lord, for they shall all know me, from the least of them unto the greatest of them, says the Lord. For I will forgive their iniquity, and I will remember their sin no more. Jeremiah called it the new covenant. Daniel called it the 70 weeks being fulfilled. He didn't say those exact words. I'm remixing it, but that's what he's talking about. And this is how Moses stated that new covenant would come in. Deuteronomy 32:43. Rejoice, you nations, with his people, for he will avenge the blood of his servants. You see, the Lord is avenging the blood of his servants. How did he do that? He let the Roman army come in and destroy the people who became his enemies. That's that land atonement. When blood is shed in the land, that blood must be shed back who shed the blood. So he's avenging the blood of his servants. This is starting off with the Messiah. My drink offering, my sacrifice was taken away. Now the armies come in and destroy. He's going to avenge the blood of his servants. You got it? He will take vengeance on his adversaries. Let his blood be upon us. That's what they said. The Lord said, say less. I got you. So he took vengeance on his adversaries. And it says, and he will make atonement for his land and for his people. He got to atone for the people. He has to atone for the land. What is Daniel 9:24 about? The atonement for the people and the atonement for the land. Look, I will make atonement for their iniquities. I will blot out their iniquities. I will bring in everlasting righteousness. I will seal the vision and prophet. When this was finally completed, 70 AD, there's no more vision and prophecies that has to occur about this. To anoint the most holy, the Holy Spirit came and it separated the sheep from the goats. So now, Revelation 21:4-5, these are the last two verses. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. Death will be no more, neither will there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore. For the first thing has passed away. That's the destruction of the old covenant. He who sits on the throne said, behold, I am making all things new. He said, right, for these words of God are faithful and true. The new covenant would indeed be brought in when the atonement finally occurred. That's Daniel's 70 weeks prophecy about the old covenant leaving and the new covenant coming in within that 10 Jubilee 490-year cycle cut out by the Lord to fulfill everything that needed to be fulfilled from the old world, the old heavens and earth, for the new heavens and earth under the last Adam to come in, take place, and take over. Thank you all for listening in. This is Elvin Israel. I will open it up now if anybody got anything to say, but I am done. Thank you all for listening in. Bats, I hope this helps you out, my brother. I did this for you. Hopefully, this is your answer. Hey, y'all stay in shalom. I'm gonna have to close it now.